Hello, welcome back. We're working on simplifying fractions. This is part 2. So in the last lesson, we have learned that to simplify a fraction into what we call lowest terms or simplest form, all you have to do is pick a number that you can divide the top by and the bottom by, the numerator and the denominator, divide it by the same number, then simplify the fraction. So you have to divide by the same number on the top and the bottom that divides evenly. So what you do is try to pick the largest number that you can divide into the top and the bottom, and that will give you the smallest number of steps. But even if you don't pick the perfect number, just pick anything that you can divide the top and the bottom into, and eventually you will get down to simplest form or lowest term. So let's talk about that by going over a concrete example. Let's say I give you the fraction 15/30. What does this mean? It means if I take a pizza and cut it into 30 pieces, that's a lot of tiny pieces, right? And I take 15 of those pieces, that is the fraction that I have. So we want to simplify that amount of pizza to a simpler form, but it's going to represent the same amount of pizza as what we have here. So we want to pick a number that we can divide the top and the bottom evenly. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the fraction 15/30ths, but we're going to extend this guy. So we're going to extend the fraction bar, and we want to divide the top and the bottom by some number. Now we have 15 and we have 30. We know from 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, we know that we can divide top and bottom by 5. All right, so let's do that, because immediately we know we can divide the top by 5 and we can divide the bottom by 5. So what happens if we do that? 15 divided by 5 is 3. How do I know that? Because 3 times 5 is 15, right? 30 divided by 5 is 6. How do I know that? Because 6 times 5 is 30, right? So I've divided the top and I've divided the bottom, and I get an answer of 3/6. But I look at this answer and I say, is this the lowest terms? Is this the simplest form? In other words, can I divide 3/6 by something on the top and something on the bottom, dividing evenly to make this fraction even simpler? And the answer is yes. I can divide the top by 3, and I can also divide the bottom by 3. Notice that first I divided the top and bottom by 5. I did it the same number top and bottom. That's totally legal. Now here I look and say, can I divide the top and bottom by something? I'm going to pick the number 3 because I can divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3. So let me start over here by 3/6, and we're going to extend this guy, and we're going to divide the top by 3 and the bottom by 3. What do I get? 3 divided by 3 is 1, because 1 times 3 is 3. And then 6 divided by 3 is 2. Why? Because 2 times 3 is 6. So this is what we call lowest terms, because this means I have half of the pizza, which I'm saying is exactly the same thing as taking 15 out of 30 slices. If I slice a pizza into 30 pieces and I take 15 of them, I get exactly the same amount of actual food than if I take a pizza and cut it into 2 pieces and only take half. And notice that along the way we went through this fraction right here, 3/6, which we're also saying is the same. So let's go ahead and check this. 1/2 is if I were to take a pizza and cut it into 2 pieces, right? But I only have 1 of those pieces, so that's how much I have. This is what we call half of a pizza, right? Is it the same as 3/6 here? So let me go ahead and make a pizza, cutting it into 6 equal pieces here. And let's see how much we have here. So let me kind of put them all together. So that's a whole pizza, but we cut them into 6 pieces, but we only have 3 of those pieces. 1, 2, 3. That's what we have. The rest of it, I'm going to throw it away. And what we're claiming is that 3/6, 3 out of 6 pieces, is the same as 1 out of 2. And you can see that that's exactly the same amount of pizza. These two fractions are exactly the same thing. And they're also the same thing as 15 out of 30. I don't have a magnet that was sliced into 30 pieces. And this is sliced into 6 pieces. I don't have a magnet to show you sliced into 30 pieces. But if I did have a magnet sliced into 30 tiny little pieces, but I took 15 of them, it would be exactly the same amount of pizza as this. So what we have figured out is that 15/30ths is exactly the same as 3/6, and that's also exactly the same as 1/2. But 1/2 is the lowest terms, or the simplest form, because I cannot divide anything top and bottom to make this any simpler. I can't think of a number to make it any simpler than that, so I'm done. So when I get to this step, I try and divide, and this time I pick 3, and then I get to simplest form. Now, I want to solve the problem one more time. Let's talk about 15/30ths, and let's think about this again, right? In this case, I knew it divided by 5 and 5, so that's what I did, and then I did the process again. But is there a different number that I could divide the top and the bottom by, a larger number than dividing by 5? Is there anything else you can think of? Well, it might take you a minute, but if you actually divide the top by 15 and also divide the bottom by 15, right, then actually 15 divided by 15 is 1, and 30 divided by 15 is actually 2, because if you take 2 and multiply it by 15, you're actually going to get 30. I know some of you may not remember that or know that, but if you go off to the side and take 15 times 2, you're going to get 30. So you see, if I think in my mind, if I pick the largest number to divide by, then in this case, I'm going to come up with dividing 15 divided by 15. I'm going to get 1/2 as the answer in only one step, right? And I notice it's the same exact answer as I got before. But if you don't remember that you can divide by 15, or you just don't know, right, then pick any number you want that goes evenly into the top and the bottom, and you're going to get some answer. And then you ask yourself, can I do it again? Can I pick another number and divide it again? And in this case, I picked 3, and I get down to the exact same answer. So my point is I don't care what you divide the top and the bottom by, actually. You're going to save steps if you can pick the biggest number you can, divide the top and the bottom by, because it only took one step here. But if you don't remember that and you have to do it multiple times, just keep asking yourself, can I simplify it again? Can I simplify it again? And so on. Eventually, you will get to exactly the same answer. All right, exactly the same answer. So let's go and crank through a bunch of additional problems and see if we can get some more practice. Let's say that we have the number 18, the fraction 18, 21st, or 18/21st, or 18/21, however you want to say it. All right. What we have here is a pizza cut into 21 pieces, and we have 18 of those slices. So we need to think of a number that we can divide the top and the bottom by, any number that we want. But it's going to save us time if we can come up with the biggest number, and we want to divide the top and the bottom by the same number. If we divide by 2, this is an even number, so it'll divide by 2, but this one will not divide by 2. But then we think about it and we say, well, actually, we can divide this by 3, and we can divide this also by 3. What is 18 divided by 3? 18 divided by 3 is 6, because 6 times 3 is 18. 21 divided by 3 is actually 7, because 7 times 3 is 21. And so we get down to this, and we ask ourselves, can we simplify this further? Can I divide the top and the bottom by something to make these numbers simpler? And I can't. There is no way to make that simpler, so the answer is 6/7. All right, let's take a look at the fraction 10/16. 10/16. So we rewrite the fraction as 10/16. Give us a little more room. And we ask ourselves, all right, what can we divide the top and the bottom by? Well, we immediately see these are both even numbers. So we know that I can divide the top by 2 and I can divide the bottom by 2 for sure. 10 divided by 2 is 5, because 5 times 2 is 10. 16 divided by 2 is 8, because 8 times 2 is 16. And so I get the answer 5/8. This is the final answer because I ask myself, can I make this simpler? Can I divide the top and the bottom by a different number, by the same number, divide 5 by the same number and divide 8 by the same number and get it simpler? And I can't. There's nothing I can pick. So this is called simplest form, or lowest terms. All right. Then, of course, we come across this problem that we've just done, which I actually solved that one first because I wanted to use the magnets for it. Let's take a look at the fraction 12/21st. 12/21st. All right, so we rewrite it 12/21st, and we ask ourselves, what can we divide top and bottom by? Can we divide by 2? Well, we really can't because 21 divided by 2 doesn't work. Can we divide by 3? Well, we can divide this by 3, and we can also divide this by 3 because we know our multiplication tables, and we know that 12 divided by 3 is 4, because 4 times 3 is 12. 21 divided by 3 is 7, because 7 times 3 is 21. And then we say, is this simplest form? Can I divide top and bottom by some number? Can't divide by 2, can't divide by 3, can't divide by 4. I mean, it works here, but it doesn't work here. Can't divide by 5, or any other number I can think of, so that's simplest form. 4/7. And what we're basically saying for all of these problems is that 4 out of 7 slices of a pizza is exactly the same as taking 12 out of 21 slices. 5 out of 8 slices of a pizza is exactly the same as taking 10 out of 16 slices. So that is what the process really means here. Now let's take a look at the next one carefully because we have a couple of choices. Let's take a look at 28, and the fraction is 28 32nds. So we have 32 slices of a pizza, but we only take 28 of them. How can we simplify this? 28, 32. All right, there's a bunch of different choices. The first thing I notice right away is that I go through my multiplication tables and I say, okay, well, I can divide this by 4 because 7 times 4 is 28. And I can divide this by, what can I divide? Also by 4 because 8 times 4 is 32. So I know that I can divide both by 4. So if I go through and I say, well, what is 28 divided by 4? I know the answer is 7 because 7 times 4 is 28. And I know this is 32 divided by 4. 32 divided by 4 is 8 because 8 times 4 is 32. And I know this is simplest form because I cannot divide the top and the bottom by anything else to make it simpler. Now that's if you happen to remember that I can divide by 4. But let me solve the problem again. Let's start over again. 28, 32. Let's say that you didn't realize you could divide by 4. You just didn't think of it. I know that this is an even number, and this is also an even number. So I know that I can divide this by 2, and I can also divide that by 2. Now, what is 28 divided by 2? You might not know that off the top of your head because it's a big number. But 28 divided by 2 actually turns out to be 14, right? And 32 divided by 2 actually turns out to be 16. How do you know? I mean, really, I know because I know my multiplication tables, but if you don't remember, 14 times 2 should be 28. 14 times 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. So 14 times 2 is 28. And then to go down here, you can say 16 times 2. 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1. And then you have 2 times 1 is 2, and then plus 1 is 3. So 16 times 2 is 32. So when I divide through, I know that these are the right numbers, but then I ask myself, can I take this fraction and make it any simpler? And I can because I see that these are also even numbers. So 14 16ths. What can I divide top and bottom by? Well, I can divide it again by 2 and again by 2. And I know that 14 divided by 2 is 7. And I know that 16 divided by 2 is 8 because 7 times 2 is 14. And 8 times 2 is 16. So the answer I get is, again, 7/8. Exactly the same thing as I got here. The reason I'm showing you two ways here is because when you're simplifying a fraction, sometimes you don't know what to divide by. What I'm trying to tell you is I don't care what you divide by as long as it divides an even number of times. The shortest way to solve the problem is just to divide by 4. It only takes one step and you get to the answer. If you divide by the biggest thing you can that works for both top and bottom number, then you're going to solve the problem faster. But if you don't think of that number, or if you don't remember that, you can see that these are even, just divide by 2, get the answer. Then you say, well, I can do it again, and I can divide by 2 again and get the answer. I'm going to get to the exact same place no matter what I do. All right, that was problem 5. We are halfway done. Let's take a look at the fraction 15/18. So what I'm going to do is divide top and the bottom by some number. What am I going to pick? Well, I can't divide by 2 because this doesn't divide by 2. This divides by 2, but this doesn't. If I divide by 3, does that work? I say, yes, actually it can, because I know that this is divisible by 3 and that's divisible by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5, because 5 times 3 is 15. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Why? Because 6 times 3 is 18. And this is the final answer because when I look at 5/6, I cannot come up with another number that I can divide top and bottom by evenly and make it any simpler. So that is the final answer, and it's only one step. All right, so we only have a few more, and we will be done. Let's take a look at 12/18. So 18 slices of a pizza, I only take 12 of them. What fraction is equivalent to this that's simpler? Well, I can see that they're even numbers immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2. I'm going to divide by 2 because I see that I can divide by 2. And they're both even, so that makes sense to me. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 18 divided by 2 is 9, because 9 times 2 is 18. So I'm saying, okay, am I done? And I say, well, no, I'm not done, because I can do the process again. I can divide the top and the bottom by something to make that fraction simpler. So let's go over here and say 6/9. What can I divide the top and the bottom by? Well, I can divide the top, not by 2. That doesn't divide into the bottom. It divides into the top. But I can divide by 3 on both of these. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. Why? Because 3 times 3 is 9, and 2 times 3 is 6. And this is the final answer, because this fraction cannot be simplified any further. So you see how it took 2 steps? I didn't have to like wrestle or stress out about what to divide by. I just saw that they were even numbers, so I divide by 2. I get this. And then I say, well, I can divide again by something else. And I'll get down to the point where eventually I'll do it enough times, I'll get to the final answer. But because it actually took 2 times here, I now know that I can actually do this in one step. 12 divided by 18. Is there another number I could divide the original problem by? Well, I picked 2 initially because I knew that they were even numbers, but I think about it further, and I know that if I divide by a bigger number, I'll save time. So I can divide by 3 and by 3, right? 12 divided by 3 is 4, right? And 18 divided by 3 is what? 18 divided by 3 is 6, because 6 times 3 is 18. And 4 times 3 is 12, right? So actually, I got this. But then I look at this and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm not done here. I can actually take the 4/6 and I can divide what? By 2. And I can divide by 2 to simplify this further. 2 divided by 2 is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. And so I get a final answer of 2/3, which matches exactly before here. So if I divide by 2, I get this, and then I divide that answer by something else, and I get this. And I divide this by 3 and get this, and then take the answer and divide by 2, I get to the same place. And I'll do it one last time just to drive the point home. Let's start over with the original problem again, 12/18. So here I divided by 2, here I divided by 3. What else can I divide by? What is the biggest number I can divide by? The biggest number I can think of is 6. Right? 12 divided by 6 is 2, because 2 times 6 is 12. And 18 divided by 6 is 3, because 3 times 6 is 18. This, again, is the same answer. So I'm trying to show you several different examples where if you think of the biggest number to divide by, you only have one step. But if you can't think of that, just pick something else and keep doing the process, and you'll always get to the same correct answer. All right, for our next problem, let's take a look at 27/30. I want to put that into simplest form. So let's think about what can we divide by on the top and the bottom. I cannot divide by 2 on the top and the bottom because this is not an even number. It won't divide. But I can divide the top and bottom by 3. On the top, 27 divided by 3 is 9. And on the bottom, 30 divided by 3 is 10, because 10 times 3 is 30. And 9 times 3 is 27. So the answer you get here is 9/10. And I can't simplify that further, so that actually is the final answer. All right, we only have 2 more problems. Let's take a look at 14/20. What can we divide top and bottom by to make this simpler? Well, I see that they're both even numbers, so I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 2 right away. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And 20 divided by 2 is 10, because 10 times 2 is 20, and 7 times 2 is 14, and the answer is 7/10. Because, and this is the simplest form, because I cannot divide top and bottom again by anything else to make it simpler. All right, here is our last problem. Let's take a look at 6/30. Right, 6/30. So let's think about what can we divide 6 by and 30 by. Well, we know that these are both even numbers. So if we divide by 2, we know that we're going to be able to get down to the answer, but we're going to save time if we can think of the largest number we can divide by, right? So we know that actually we can divide the top by 6 and also the bottom by 6. That's the biggest number we can think of, because 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So the answer is 1/5. 1 times 6 is 6. 5 times 6 is 30, so the answer is 1/5. I cannot simplify that anymore. Now, just for giggles, let's go down here and simplify it a different way. 6/30. Let's say we didn't think of this and we just divided by 2. What do we get here? 6 divided by 2 is 3, And 30 divided by 2, if you actually think about it and do some multiplication off to the side, 30 divided by 2 is actually 15, right? But I can simplify this further, because if I take the 3 and I divide by 3 and the 15 and divide by 3, divide top and bottom by 3, what I will get is 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 15 divided by 3 is 5, because 5 times 3 is 15, and 1 times 3 is 3, and I get exactly the same thing, 1/5. So the bottom line of this lesson is when you're simplifying fractions, you will save time if you can think of the biggest number that you can divide the top and the bottom by to simplify it. But if you can't think of the biggest number, it's okay. Just if it's even, divide by 2. If you know you can divide both by 3, divide by 3. And you may have to do the process 2 or 3 times, but eventually you will get down to exactly the same place. I've shown you several times that you'll always get to the same place. So don't stress out about what to divide by. Just pick something that works and keep on working from there. So that was the topic of simplifying fractions. It's crucially important. I want you to practice all of these lessons, or all of these problems, and then follow me on to the next lesson. We'll continue building your skills step by step.